Hi everyone, I'm Wendy from WithWendy Crafting. I'm a passionate scrapbooker of, sharing and teaching scrapbooking for 19 years, and I've probably been doing scrapbooking a lot of my adult life. And I come to you today to share a conversation that I want to have with a lot of overwhelmed scrapbookers. And whilst I can't be in every one of your lounges sitting with you with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, I can put this out there and hope that some of you read this. Whilst it's a conversation I've wanted to have with a lot of scrapbookers for a long time, it's triggered by a desire to help, because I have heard of too many of you that I have met, some of you I've met a long time ago, that may have been very excited and passionate scrapbookers when your children were young, and life has taken over, but you're probably coming out the other side and now realising as your children grow older that scrapbooking is something you want to do again, but you just have no idea where to restart. This conversation can also be for somebody who's wanting to start scrapbooking and just has no idea where to start. Excuse me as I refer to my notes from time to time, because I do want to keep on track, and there are some really important points that I want to make or share. And so, yeah, but just imagine that we're sitting down with a cuppa, as you may well be, and we're having this conversation. I'd love to hear from you. You can comment below or send me an email, and I'll share my email details at the end of the video. An overwhelmed scrapbooker, you might be feeling bogged down, stuck, lost, just have no idea where to start or restart. And what I want to do is help to get you out of that overwhelmed place, because it can be heavy and it's stopping you from moving forward. A lot has changed since I started scrapbooking officially in 2001, so much. Back then we had piles of photos, we had boxes of photos in packets, and now we have external hard drives, computers, and SD cards, and so many places that our digital photos are stored, and probably most of them are on your phone. It terrifies me to hear that people aren't backing up their photos. Or maybe aren't educated on even just how to turn on a setting to back up their photos if you have an iPhone to their cloud. Maybe scared of that. Some of these things are things that I can help you in further conversations, but first I need to get you motivated to do something. There are many ways to scrapbook these days, and I'm going to be focusing still on the papercraft version of scrapbooking. That's not to say that some of the things that I share couldn't be transferred and you still utilised if you are a digital or a hybrid scrapbooker, or somebody who likes to use their photos in other paper crafts, because I will talk about how to organise photos. But we're going to take this slow. We're going to just be very gentle on ourselves and first get us out of that overwhelmed place. So my objective really initially is to help you explore new mindsets, not to change them, not to tell you how to do it, because there are so many different ways and you have to make the decision how you do it. But it's to help you see, so that you can come out of that overwhelmed place, that there are options that make it a lot simpler these days. And we'll walk through the process together, because it's taken me some time. Really, whilst I've scrapbooked for the past 19 years very heavily, some of these transitions have been very subtle for me, and I've only realised even recently that my mindset has changed about some things. If you continue with the conversation series, this is not a commitment for life. You can press the pause button just down there at any time and hop off the train or hop off the conversations. But whether you decide to start scrapbooking or not, I will, as I said, I will be sharing tips on managing your digital images, how to get organised, whether it be your crafting things or your photos, and being prepared so that you can use those small pockets of time to scrapbook. So I thought we'd start with a really fun way, but it's actually quite meaningful, and I call it the Scrapbooker's Overwhelm Health Assessment. It's just 7 little things that I'm going to ask you, and you can mentally note how many of these things in your head, or use your fingers or a piece of paper, how many of these things relate to you. So see how you immediately feel when I mention them, when I ask you to start thinking about scrapbooking again. The first question is, or statement I guess, I would love to start or restart scrapbooking, but I don't have a clue where to start. Is that something, a box that you would tick? I was a scrapbooker many years ago, and the thought of restarting is totally desirable, but absolutely terrifying. I have so many digital images, I don't know where to start, and I know that is a problem for many. I have so many craft supplies, but I take so long going through it all, and I don't know what to pick to go with my photos. I can never find the right layout design or inspiration, and I spend many, many hours just working on the one layout. That was number 5. Number 6, it was all right when I had one child. This is not everyone, but I had one child or 2 children, but now I have 3 or 4 or 5, or maybe it's just a different job, or you're in a different phase of your life and things are much more difficult. You don't have the time that you had once before. Which leads me directly to number 7. I don't have enough time to scrapbook. So there's 7 statements. And I would suggest that if even one of those overwhelms you, and you're within your right to feel that way, it can feel overwhelming. These are all reasons to not start scrapbooking. But what I consider them is they're all little wagons on my overwhelmed train. Each of them make you the train driver and your train heavier. So if we can uncouple just 1 or 2 or more of those wagons, then your train's going to feel lighter. So in our conversation today, what I'd like to do is look at 2 aspects. The first one is a reason to keep on the train, and the second one is some reasons to step off, or ways to help you step off. So let's have a look at one of the biggest reasons I hear about people staying on the overwhelmed train, and that is that feeling of being left behind. I now consider it a historical reason. When many of us started scrapbooking in the early 2000s, like me, our projects were driven by boxes of photos, piles of photos, envelopes full of photos, and being behind was normal because it was a much newer hobby. And even if you fast forward 10 years from then, that's 2011, we still felt behind. The ultimate prize was being caught up. And I'm going to tell you a little story here because I do still remember this feeling. I started in 2001 when my firstborn my daughter was 3.5. And I loved scrapbooking. I did it as often as I could. And from the time she was 3.5 till the time she was 5, so that's the next 18 months, I went to workshops, I went to retreats. I was sharing it, but I didn't have a very big business or customer base at that time, so it was really just me and a few friends. And in that 18 months, I managed to scrapbook in chronological order, as we all did, from her birth to her 5th birthday. So at that 18-month mark, I felt, in quotes, caught up. And I remember that I was at a weekend retreat, and I'd also brought some travel photos with me. So had I scrapbooked every photo in my life? No. But my objective at that time was to build her life story. And at 5, that was her life story. And I remember standing up at that weekend about halfway through and saying, I am caught up. I have up to date with my daughter's photos. And for a little while it felt amazing. And then I did my travel album of some really old trip that I had done overseas. But then I realised it actually didn't feel that good to be caught up at all, because I wanted to continue to document her life and the little stories that we had and the things that we did. And whilst I could do that, I didn't have as many photos as I wanted to work with. And the feeling of being caught up wasn't as fabulous as I had anticipated it would feel. To be behind infers that you have a set place or level of progress or expectation about something. So back then we had an expectation of being able to document all of this child or the next child or all of our children's, or maybe it was their first year. I want to suggest that no one is ever behind in their scrapbooking. Now, that the exception to that rule might be if you set yourself a specific project that has a deadline. So for Christmas, you want to give a gift, or for a 21st, you want to give a gift, or a 70th birthday, you want to give a gift, or maybe it's a gift to yourself, but you have a deadline and you want to complete it by a certain date, then certainly that is, because that has a deadline, you could be behind. You could be putting yourself under pressure if you're losing weeks and days. You have a plan of when you want to achieve it. But if you're just working in that sort of continuing forever type style of scrapbooking, then you're not behind. And I want to compare a few things to make you see how. So let's think of some everyday things. With your washing and your laundry, we know that we are behind if we have a huge pile of washing in our laundry, or that we go to get some clothes and we haven't got anything to wear. That is definitely being behind. In your garden, you know that you're behind if you had weeds up to your knees, or your trees and flowers are starting to wilt because they haven't got any water. That's a very visual account of being behind. If you work or study or do some sort of learning task, and you have your teacher or your boss breathing down your neck or telling you something's due by a date, then that's definitely being behind. But as I said, if we're scrapbooking in that forever and ongoing process, we might still have specific projects or layouts or interests that we want to achieve, but are we ever really behind? And how do we know that? Really, we're just putting pressure on ourselves that's sucking the joy out of a task, and I don't even call it a task, it's a hobby, something that we enjoy doing or that we want to achieve. So here's some better comparisons that I think explain how in scrapbooking we are not behind, and they're in my own life. If I have a goal to cut back on chocolate, I love Cadbury chocolate, and if you know me well, you'll know that. At the moment, I'm choosing to cut back because I know that it's not healthy for me consuming it in the quantities that I've been consuming it, particularly during COVID. It's not healthy. I can treat myself a little every now and again, but my focus is on cutting back. If I have one chocolate bar, am I now behind? No. I made a choice today to have that chocolate bar, but I'm not behind on my goal to cut back. I've just made a choice today to, stop my goal, and then I can get back on track. Here's another one. If I decide to go for a walk every day to get a little exercise and feel a little healthier, but if I miss a day, am I behind? No, I may have walked less that week, and maybe that chocolate bar that was my treat for doing the walking is now not something that I'll reward myself with, but I'm not behind in my goal. I have just stepped away from that goal for a small period. And the last example here I've got is catching up with a family member or friend. If we miss an opportunity to catch up with someone, an engagement, a planned coffee, a lunch, or a get together with the special people in our lives, are we behind? No, of course we're not. We've made a choice, or perhaps it's life just getting in the way, which is one of the biggest reasons that scrapbooking we have to step away from it sometimes, is just life being busy. But just like our scrapbooking, we choose to make the time for family and friends. It's something we want to do. And so we're not behind in catching up with people. We are just have moved away from it for a little while. So these last three examples are all choices. They're choices to do something we want to do. With mine, it was cutting back in chocolate, doing some exercise, and catching up with family and friends. We're never behind. We just choose to keep going. We replan, refocus, and we can get back to our goal or an activity that we love. Scrapbooking is always a choice, and we have to find ways to fit it into our life. And if we're motivated and we're connected with the reasons that we do it, then that's much easier. So it's a little bit of soapbox style, conversation there, and even a little bit of tough love. But hopefully you can look past my words and feel my sincerity in wanting to help you reconnect with the reasons that you scrapbook or the reasons that you want to scrapbook, so that we can unhitch some of those wagons that are just pulling you back and stopping you from going back to where you want to be. So now let's look at the second thing I want to look at today, and that is our first task. And that is one that will help you to step off the overwhelm train. So I'm giving you permission. Let's just forget that train for a little while, and I'm going to help you look at whether you really want to scrapbook and what it is that you love about scrapbooking. In that way, before you invest any mental energy, emotional energy, before you start organising, I just want you to make a layout with me, not today. We're going to get ready to make a layout in another conversation. I want you to have no boundaries and reservations. We're leaving that overwhelm train behind. There's going to be no stress because we're just going to make a layout. And we're just going to have some fun. I'm going to walk you through it. It shouldn't be hard. So you can look for another video coming soon, if it's not already up there. That is conversation number 2, making a layout. So here's some tasks that you can do, and whilst we are preparing for video number 2. You're going to have to find some photos. Now that doesn't mean sorting through all your photos. That doesn't mean printing all your photos. You've got a couple of choices. You can go and grab some recent photos. That might be off your phone, and maybe you do get them printed, but do not dig too deep. Do not get overwhelmed. I want 4 to 6 photos that can go on your page, okay? So if it's something that you're passionate about, something that's recent, that'll be even better because it will be something that you will enjoy. The next step is to, can I find my list? Let's have a look. Find some paper and embellishments. Again, I don't want you digging through all your craft supplies. Just find some colours, maybe 1 pattern paper and some cardstock that will match with the photos. And doesn't have to match perfectly. 2 sheets of white cardstock, and I will provide the layout. It's going to be a simple, fairly generic layout that will allow you to fit your photos of whatever orientation on there. And you might need some basic tools, some trimmer adhesive, foam if you like to pop up your embellishments. We're going to take it fairly simple, okay? There might be a few tips you'll learn along the way, but the objective of this is not to learn a whole lot. It's just to re-explore whether scrapbooking is something you want to do, whether it's something you enjoy, or whether it's something you want to explore and learn more about. By the end of it, you'll be thinking about what you enjoy most about scrapbooking and can connect that. Is it the pastime? Is it the hobby? Is it getting away? I know for me, it's where I go to disappear, to forget everything, all the other pressures of life. And maybe it's to bring out your craftiness. Maybe you feel artistic, but you don't have to. Maybe it's learning. Maybe you want to learn more. You'll be also looking at what you enjoy least, because that's an area that we can then, it's probably one of those wagons on the train. So we need to get you past that. Maybe you don't like journaling, and you don't have to. I am starting to call my scrapbooking storytelling, because I do consider my albums tell a story, and not every page has journaling on it, but photos just in themselves can still tell a story, and that's your choice how much journaling you put on it, and that's a conversation for way down the track. I also want you to think about what you want to achieve, because we'll be talking about the definition of success. And I mentioned earlier that success a long time ago was being caught up, i.e. not being behind. And I want to change that definition. I actually want you to think about what the definition will be. I don't want you to come up with the answer yet, but I want you to think about, if you were to start scrapbooking or re-scrapbooking, what are some things you would like to do? Now, I want you to put aside that let's go back to all the old pages, because I want you to fall in love with scrapbooking. I want you to enjoy some current photos and current stories and connect with those before we look back too far, because that's just going to be adding another wagon to your overwhelmed train. So we will be defining what success looks like, but not straight away. But you can start to think about that. I'm looking forward to the opportunity of continuing our conversations. If it's something that you want to explore, this is going to be on Facebook. This is going to be on YouTube for those that are not on Facebook. And there may be opportunities in the future for us to pop on Zoom so we can actually have conversations. I will be inviting people to join some of my closed Facebook groups where we can have more personal conversations, and you can ask me direct questions. But for now, I'll be popping this on YouTube so that everybody, whether you're on Facebook or not, has the opportunity to see this, because my objective and my passion is sharing a hobby and something that I think is wonderful for everyone to have the opportunity to do. Let's get rid of that overwhelm train and let's explore what scrapbooking is for you. Bye for now.